Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And Sat, you all know, is a Sanskrit word means truth. And myth is a Sanskrit word or dhatu, which means a lie or fake imagination. And when the missionaries or the people who were not very intelligent came and saw the Vedic literatures and they could not find the source that such detailed descriptions and such accurate descriptions were written. So they coined the term mythology. Somewhere I saw the first instance to be 1840 to be used, and but it has been used widely now. The entire South American ancient history, including Aztecs, are known as mythology today, which is not correct. So Sattology is a term means science of truth, science of or study of truth. So we call our Vedic literature Sattology, not mythology. And in this channel, we try our best to bring the best of the best. So I have a great Muni, the researcher, a great friend, and I think that he has got the brain of the Brahma. Like he, so much research he has done, and very analytical. So without delay, let us welcome Shri NIlesh Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji. So you keep on adding to the adjectives, huh? Well, today we have an exciting subject in our ongoing series on the Purva Paksha. There are more than 130 different claims, and each one of them, well, at least the one that either have some reputation in the sense of popularity, or sometime their work here may be extremely lousy, but they might have done some good work somewhere else, and therefore many people, yad yad acharate shrestha, what happens, people think, oh, this guy is a great guy, so therefore he or she, whatever they say somewhere else, which may be very lousy, they take it as a truth, as a sat, but it may not be sat, and therefore we have to do Purva Paksha.
So today we are doing R N Iyengar and 1478 claim of R N Iyengar as per the dates of Mahabharat, which is I'm a uneducated person in this regard. I can outright disclaim it. This is not there, but still that may be more emotional reason. But with this Purya Paksh, I will also learn, because I have not seen this presentation before, that how this is not correct. Now, one thing I must like to tell all the viewers is that, when we say Vad Vivad, or that is different than Ved Vad Rata. So two different topics. So Vad Vivad is allowed, and that's how you sometimes ascertain truth. And especially in the Swayamvar of Yagya of Dashrath, many Pandit and Brahmins were called for Vad Vivad and counter arguments for the people to learn the Vedic Siddhanta.
Correct.
And so that's how you learn. When two intelligent people talk, then you learn it, because you know what can be the counter, what can be the pro statement. So it is not argument. It is not argument. It can be difference of opinion, which is very much allowed in the Vedic Shastra. But anyone who can prove it with evidence, that's how they get more credibility. And I was hearing somebody else speaking yesterday, the difference between credibility and popularity. And we at Sattology, we are focused more on credibility than on popularity, because our goal is much deeper. It's like challenging the status quo, challenging the mythology adjective to the ancient cultures of the whole world, not just India or Hindus. So without delay, let us begin with this, Nileshji.
Yes, and a quick comment on the Vada, Vivada, Jalpa, Hitva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati, and all these. These are different types of Vada Prakar. Now, Krishna is saying in his Vibhuti Yoga, Vada Pravadata Aham. Okay, the best Vad of the knowledgeable people, which is done with the intention of taking the truth further. Okay? That leads to growth of knowledge and not just some bickering. Okay, not bickering. That is the Vada, that is what represents Krishna as a Vibhuti Yoga. Now, unfortunately, what does happen is that because both parties may not be trained into what Vada is, how to avoid Jalpa, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati, and Nigrahasthana, they may actually, some of the debates may come out as a bickering.
Right.
Okay. And Nyaya Darshana even talks about it. He says, even when the other party does not understand how to do vada, usually you should avoid doing vada with such person.
Right.
Having said that, he said sometime the other party may not understand what vada is. That is one thing. But even the common masses also don't understand.
Right.
So if you don't participate and don't give a befitting reply, even the person who doesn't understand vada, the common people will think, oh, this guy doesn't have any evidence. That's why he cannot do vada. So he says, so what Nyayadarshana sage Gautama says, in that case, you should do vada, even if it does not turn into a proper vada, but it might have elements of bickering. Okay. Now, in this case, when you and me are discussing, none of that happens. But if many of these other Mahabharata researchers, if they ever can grasp some courage and be willing to come on your show, but not just on one-on-one, but just as a together, like three of us or something, it will be very educational.
Very
So, and we should leave it to so idea behind this is to present what our position is backed by evidence, or even without backed by evidence, as many Mahabharata researchers do, and leave it to other people to decide. Okay. Correct. So your goal is to get as many researchers to speak as much as they would like to speak.
Exactly.
And honestly, that is a great service that you're doing. Okay. My job, although I don't run a show like you, my job is also in whatever way to encourage other Mahabharata researchers to speak up. Right. And many are smart enough to know how lousy and disastrous their claim is, and they don't speak. So some of the people who actually come to your show or many other shows and who actually speak about their claim, okay, I will not agree with their claim, but I have a great respect because they have skin in the game. Right. They are willing to put their face, they are willing to put their name attached to a claim which may or may not be true. Okay, according to them, it is a true. So let's get into one such claim today. Okay, and this comes from a very respected individual in I mean around the world, but definitely in the Indic chronology space. This is a claim of Professor R N Iyengar, and I am asserting, now remember, as a Purva Paksha, first I should speak purely from his point of view, which I will do. Having said that, just like I have repeated this before, many times when I discuss something from that person's point of view, and then even I may give a rebuttal, but somewhere this can be lost in a hearing or focusing or translation, and people think I am supporting their claim. No, I am not. So that's why I'm making it very clear. The claim of Professor R N Iyengar, as for the year of Mahabharat war, he claims that it occurred based on his research in 1478 BCE. I am saying it's unscientific and it's illogical. And that is what my goal would be, to present it. Why I call it unscientific, why I call it illogical. Okay, so but before I do that, I want to talk about some of the, actually talk about his claim from his perspective also. And I will list some of the things that he has claimed. I will specifically, crisply and clearly will state which of his claims I agree with, which of his claim I disagree with, before even getting into the actual discussion of 1478 BCE, because everyone has to make certain assumptions and one must state the assumptions. So I'll talk about his assumptions. This chart I am sharing during this Purva Paksha series, all the claims of the Mahabharata war, the dating of the Mahabharata war, the year of the Mahabharata war, there are 130 plus, and they range from 400 CE to 7300 BCE. Along this time axis, or the claims axis, the specific claim that we are going to discuss today of Professor R N Iyengar falls into this bracket. It's 1478. So just on that border, you can say. Okay, but so it falls along the second millennium BCE, which is what, if you remember me critiquing a small article written by Dr. Konrad Elst. Konrad Elst, in a very dismissive fashion, he's saying the whole Mahabharata debate is almost over. At least for him, it's completely over. It has to be between second millennium BCE. And I'll give you the analogy. It's like, say, during the very, very critical operation, There are anesthesiologists, nurses, there are many other people monitoring many different parameters of the patient. And then the famous surgeon comes. He does the main critical part of the surgery. And when that is done, he just walks out, leaving to the support staff, so to say, the nurses and whatnot, to do the suturing and cleaning up the patient and whatnot. Almost in that kind of very dismissive fashion, I can say, Dr. Konrad Els claims that, through his article that he wrote at Pragyata, and we discussed that on this show, he has shown, guys, it's all clear. Second millennium BC, folks, why were you wasting your time? It has to be somewhere in second millennium BCE. And in that article, he said, now whether you want to call it 1478 BCE of Professor R N Iyengar, or whether you want to call it 1793 BCE of Dr. Ashok Bhatnagar, guys, those are details. You guys figure it out, as if like a very famous surgeon who has done the main job and now leaving the details suturing to the support staff, and he just walks away. Well, I wish it was that simple. It is not that simple. And as we are saying it, so the 1793 claim of Dr. Ashok Bhatnagar, we already discussed, and I have shown decisively how that is unscientific and illogical. The second claim that Dr. Els refers to is the 1478 BCE of Professor R N Iyengar. I am going to show, and it might be few parts, how it is also unscientific and illogical and has absolutely no corroboration whatsoever, zilch, zero, with the evidence of the Mahabharata text. All right, before that, my framework here. Now, most of you by this time should become familiar with it. The x-axis is of a problem comprehension. Do truly people understand how complex the problem of Mahabharata dating is? Yes, no. Those are the two sides. The second point is there a scientific awareness of us principles of science, the logic of scientific method, the methods, how logical inferences are drawn? Now, this is not necessarily a comment on whether they have a scientific acumen and logical reasoning skills. They may have those, they may not have those. But are they exhibiting those skills in arriving at the specific claim of the Mahabharat war, or in discussing the dating of Mahabharat war if they don't have their own claims, such as Dr. Konrad Els? And based on that, we can say, hi, yes, they have awareness, or they exhibit scientific acumen, logical reasoning in discussing Mahabharata dating, the high of this on the high side or on the low side. So coming back to Professor R N Iyengar, he does have a specific claim. And actually, I like it when they have a specific claim as opposed to Konrad Els, who just talking second millennium BCE. I mean, it can be still dismissed, and I have shown decisively why that is false. But we cannot get and discuss the details, because in order to discuss the detail, not only we need a specific year of the Mahabharat war, a specific claim with a year of the Mahabharat war, we also need the specific claim for the first day of the war. We need a specific claim for the day of Bhishma Nirvana. And then we can just show whether and how, to what extent it matches with the evidence of the Mahabharata text. Back to Professor R N Iyengar, since he has a specific claim, at least for the year of the Mahabharat war, he's going to fall into either the bottom left-hand corner or the top right-hand corner. I have analyzed his work. I'm going to encourage each one of you to read his papers. They are out there in the public domain. Okay, and I'm going to show you the title of it today. Multiple papers. I'm going to show the title of one of such. Based on that, I'm asserting that he does not fall into any of the other three quadrants, but the bottom left-hand quadrant. Okay, it is a priori agenda. He's already convinced about the date somewhere in that 1500 BCE area. Then he finds one, tries to justify it. Okay, that is the summary of it. Okay, let's quickly discuss a bit of a background about Professor R N Iyengar. Now, this is about respecting him and respecting his work, doing a hard work, doing a tapasya, even when the final answer may be wrong. Many people who have not done this and they just come to the social media and comment, they do not understand how much work it takes to even come up with a claim, even a wrong claim. So here is a photo of Professor R N Iyengar ji. Now he is, so I got some snapshot from Wikipedia, very famous personality, by the way, okay? I mean, he has a page on the Wikipedia created by somebody else, I presume. 77-year-old, doing this for a long time. He has a PhD from Indian Institute of Sciences, which is a very premier institute in India in the field of science and technology. Then he has other degrees from there also. He actually taught at Indian Institute of Sciences for many years. And then he's a Raja Ramanna fellow. There was some additional information that maybe got cut. He is a structural engineer, seismology, that is his field, and maybe other expertise that I'm not aware of. He has a very deep interest in astronomy. Even you can call him a expert astronomer. He has done some wonderful work on Parashar Tantra. Now, I do not agree with how he interprets some of these verses, but guess what? And same thing with Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji that many of you would have listened to. But that is because, I mean, Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji also doesn't agree with his interpretation. But we are very thankful to him, both of us, I'm saying, Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji and myself, for taking this Parashar Tantra, a book on Indian astronomy, and translating it. Okay, he's very meticulous in what he does. He's also very good. Actually, in my first book, the book When Did the Mahabharat War Happen? The Mystery of Arundhati, that I wrote in 2011. I have mentioned him, especially in the context of his ability and his eagerness and his willingness to look at the multiple manuscripts of any specific text. It could be Mahabharat, it could be Ramayana and whatnot. Find those different references from different perspectives, do its translation, look at multiple translations, and bring those such wonderful astronomy references to people's attention, including mine. And I'm thankful to him for that. The paper we are going to discuss that he wrote in the Indian Journal of History of Science in 2003. The title of the paper is Internal Consistency of Eclipses and Planetary Positions in Mahabharat. I think the title does a good job of what he's going to discuss in the paper, so I will read it again. Internal Consistency of Eclipses and Planetary Positions in Mahabharat. So broadly speaking, two areas, eclipses and planetary positions in Mahabharat. Today, we may able to get to describe what specific planetary positions he has considered. We may not have a chance to go to eclipses, but we'll definitely do that in part 2 or part 3. This is very exciting, guys. Okay, so yes, it is technical, but if you spend time, this can be very educational. Okay, so please, if you are deep into it, do consider reading his paper in the original. Reading once may not be sufficient. Read it multiple times if required. Something else I would say, yeah. So he is also, so when first time, when I published my first book in 2011, I sent him my book, the PDF copy of my book at that time. Now, no longer I give PDF copies. I'm not allowed to based on the publication restrictions. But at that time, I was allowed to give out a PDF. And I'm just, Adityaji, using this opportunity because many people send me requests saying, please send me the PDF. And I cannot send that anymore. I'm not allowed to, so to say. Okay. Not many people understand that. So I'm just using this opportunity. But that time, I sent a PDF to him. I sent physical copies, like paper copies, to many Mahabharata researchers that I could find their physical address. And out of those 50 plus, all the famous names, most of you would know those 50 names if you are in the Indic space. Nobody or hardly anyone responded back to me, even acknowledging that they received the copy. The reason I'm mentioning this is actually Professor R N Iyengar is one of those few 2 or 3 rare individuals. He acknowledged the receipt of the copy that I sent to him on the Mahabharata. Now, since then, directly, I have never heard from him directly about this. So he never critiqued it, or if he has critiqued it, he has not told me about it. But there are also some other common discussion groups, sometimes email groups, and I have listened, I have heard his comments before, and sometimes we have responded. But his style I have seen is like he will respond to an extent and then he will suddenly disappear. In the sense, he will stop responding. So I have not pursued that much with him. Aditya very interesting. That's something we might do, although it does not exactly fall into the Purva Paksha of the Mahabharata claims. But just recently, possibly like 2-3 days ago, and I'll not mention the date, now I'm learning slowly. But 2-3 days ago, in one group, Bharatiya Vidvat Parishad, it's a group of Indologists focusing on the Sanskrit, you can say. There actually another professor posted my award-winning paper from Swadeshi Indology Conference 2. And Professor R N Iyengar apparently has an objection to the translation of one of the two verses that I have used in that award-winning paper. And then, so a small discussion has ensued. I will just, if I have to go by the past experience, he will respond for some times and then he may disappear or just refuse to respond. But I am trying to engage him to see if we can have a meaningful discussion. In the past, we did not have meaningful discussions, but I'm saying this as a both sides of the coin. Some of his work is very good, and even whether we agree with his translation or not, he has created a good foundation. I mean, his Parashar Tantra book, I would say any student of Indian Indology in general, Indian astronomy in particular, must pick up a copy and should be a reference text on his or her shelf. Okay, so let's get into this.
I want to add one thing here.
Please.
The Amazon India has no control. So even if you're not sending the PDF, people can download the entire thing if it's on Amazon.
No, forget that. No, it's not on Amazon.
Okay.
But there are some no, I mean, so it's not Amazon. There are other issues that's beyond the scope of this discussion. Right. Where I stop. There are multiple reasons why I don't even send individual PDF, or I don't get a time to respond to individuals when they personally write it. Okay. Many people don't realize that they don't realize how many emails or this thing I get. So if I get, say, 200 emails a week, I mean, I have my other life, right? I mean, I have to do my research and whatnot, other personal responsibilities. I can't even open those 200 emails and read them, especially if they don't write crisply, just as a to the point. They will just write a whole long essay. They will send me some attachment files. Nileshji, read it. I mean, I will not find the time for that. They have to read it. And they have to give me a crisp summary. I read this book. Here is what it says. Here is the evidence. Remember, last episode, we discussed how to do a Purva Paksha. What are some of the tools? They have to use these tools. Those people who send me emails have to use these tools to make a good summary of it. And if it is something interesting, something useful, then I will go deeper. I'll find a time, I'll block the time, and I will read what they have said. But I get too many of them. I cannot respond. And that is also another reason. But there are other reasons from a publication point of view. So we'll not go there. So what is the claim of Professor R N Iyengar? Aditya, did you have anything to add before I get into his specific claim?
No. One thing I must say that when we, especially, people who are actively engaged, like yourself, in research, and myself also to some extent. So when people ask you questions, they need to come up with some kind of what we speak on, some background. So they have to do Purva Paksha on us also. And before they should listen to us.
Very much. I mean, the question has to be sandigdha, right? Which means they have studied everything that you or me have to say on that subject through our books, through our blogs, through our videos. In spite of that, now or because of it, if it leads to some additional question, they may ask. Yes. But most of the questions, even in the YouTube comments, first thing they sometimes are irrelevant questions. So they will not, the people have to ask the questions about what is being discussed in that particular YouTube or in that particular article or in that particular book. There is no point asking something beyond it, number one. And if they ask a question, they have to show their own understanding of it.
Right.
So there is no point. They ask like as if, Nileshji, what is your opinion? I'm not interested in giving my opinion. Everyone has an opinion. In most cases, they are useless. Okay. What we are interested in is people's assertion. Even people's conjecture, speculation is fine as long as they clarify that it is their speculation and maybe they are looking for evidence. If they assert, that means they have a evidence and they must state what that evidence is. I mean, me as a researcher, you as a researcher, or the people who ask the question, they cannot just ask, what do you think about this? And I'll come to that also, which is to another one, which is to say, what do I think about Mr. X or Mrs. X? Well, that is a absolutely illogical, idiotic question. Okay, they need to tell me, and I don't even need to know the person, but if they want to mention the person, that's fine. They need to tell me, hey, here is Mr. X or Mrs. X claiming this. Here is their evidence. Here is, I have read it, and here is my thinking about it, that I agree with it, or I don't disagree, I disagree with it, or I agree with this portion because of this, or I don't agree with this portion because of this. And Nileshji, do you have anything to add to it? Or what are your thoughts? Or what do you think of my analysis? That is the kind of questions they need to ask, which means they need to do some work, Purva Paksha, some tapasya, some swadhyay, some study, and then they ask. And so they should, I mean, again, Aditya, I'll take this opportunity to clarify, not that everyone will still listen, but if they post a question and if I don't respond, mostly it is because of this. Also, if they post something and I respond, immediately they should not assume that they ask a very brilliant question. Sometimes I just said, okay, I mean, the person may have a right intentions, may not have understood it properly. So if I have a time, I happen to see it, then I may just briefly respond. Anyways, so these are very important consideration, guys, especially if you're looking for Indic Renaissance. We cannot afford to be lazy. We cannot afford to be idiotic. We have to do tapasya. We have to get out of the dogma. We have to get out of the emotion. We have to learn coherent argumentation. We have to study things. I mean, many of the people who do not believe or who do not have a trust in the Indian civilization, Indian narratives, they study 1,000 times better than our folks who are just on the strength of an emotion will accept something, nothing wrong with it, but then we'll ask idiotic questions. Okay, well, let's get into, after this my digression of mine, let's get into back to the claim of Professor R N Iyengar. So the first thing, Aditya ji, it's immediately going to rub you the wrong way. You're going to see that, because it rubbed me the wrong way, and I feel frustrated to see this time and time again. Does it do this to you? Look at the claim. One of the claims that he makes in his paper, he says, well, everyone knows, he says, that the current Mahabharata text grew out of Jaya, a poem of 8,800 verses. I'm saying this from this paper, guys, okay? Internal consistency of eclipses and planetary positions in Mahabharata. Please, 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 if you are truly serious, read this paper. Okay.
No, my comment here is, now you ignited the fire here. So here, the person who doesn't believe Vyasadev and he's trying to do the dating of Mahabharata, it's, what is the use? Now here, 8,800 shloka is the ones which only he or Shukdev Goswami and Sanjay may or may not understand. That's what he refers to as. But not.
Correct. It is very clear in the Mahabharata text.
Very clear. Very, very clear.
Right? And why do these people continue to create this falsehood, continue to propagate this falsehood? And I'll tell you something, Aditya ji. With few of the Indic researchers who are well decorated, they are also considered famous. I mean, most of the people listening to it, if you are in the Indic research space, like Indology, interested in Indology, you know these names. When they said something like what Professor R N Iyengar is claiming, that it was initially a small text called Jaya of 8,800 verses, and then it grew to 100,000. When I have brought it to their attention with backing evidence, they will simply just keep mum, but not change their position. And they will continue to repeat this same nonsense ad nauseum. Okay, actually, this is very frustrating. And it is coming from the people who Indians very blindly, emotionally would consider as their saviors.
Saviors.
Okay.
Another
So,
one is actually Mahabharat says 60 lakh, 60 lakh shloka written. Out of
correct.
30 lakh given to Deva,
Yes,
15 lakh given to Gandharva, 14 lakh given to Yaksha, and 100,000 given to Prithvi.
correct.
Manushalok.
Manusha, right? Now, because we don't have a access to the 30 lakhs and whatever those other Gandharva Loka and Deva Loka. That's why we can take that statement on a leap of Shraddha. Perfect.
Correct.
Because we don't have access to it, we cannot do anything with it.
Right.
Otherwise, we would have read the additional descriptions and we would have tried to analyze it.
Nee, we
So
made 100,000 to 8,800. What would have done to 60 lakh?
there you go, right? Exactly. So, but at least we have 100,000 plus, right?
Correct. Correct.
So we should use it anyway. So this is one. Now, to be fair to Professor R N Iyengar, I mean, those who are watching and those who will watch, I want to. This is and hopefully most of you are used to my style by now. I'm very crisp about what I claim. So here I'm saying this is decisively false. It is wrong. There is no evidence whatsoever in its support. So when I want to say something that it is wrong, I don't mince words. I say it very clearly. I show the evidence. Those people who want to find out what is the actual Mahabharata saying about this 8,800, they should go to Adi Parva of Mahabharata, read the first chapter, the whole first chapter. Read multiple times if you need to. It's not that confusing, guys. Okay, you will find it. Now, what he says, these are I'm summarizing some of his claims or assumptions before he gets into the actual technical aspects or actual Mahabharata evidence in detail. Then he says the text has or may have inconsistencies due to errors associated with ancient narratives. Now, this is my summarizing what he's saying. Okay, he might have written a paragraph on this. Now, Aditya, I know that you don't immediately agree to this, and I respect your position. I would say that because in copying this grantha, many errors do get introduced. And you may possibly agree with that. For example, if you look at the Bhandarkar Oriental Critical Edition, for each one verse at the top, there is like typically a paragraph in the bottom. And it will say, for example, you take Arundhati verse, Arundhati Taya Pesha, what is that? Vasishta Prishtata Kruta Ya Chaisha Visuta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata. So they will say Ya Chaisha Vishruta Rajas, and that Chaisha, it will say somewhere it was like a Aisha, some spelling mistake, some writing mistake is done. And so they write it, sometimes even a simple anuswar, simple kana, that kind of thing, arrow and a dot and visarga, even that missing from certain manuscript, they will mention it if they had considered that manuscript. So I will say the text has, Professor Iyengar is saying, text has may have inconsistencies due to errors associated with ancient narratives. I would say I agree with it. Now, I have no problem accepting that in principle that can happen. Then he says, he believes that descriptions of the sky, floods, earthquakes may not have been distorted intentionally. So before that, he's claiming that some things might have been distorted, some things might have been exaggerated. I have no comment on that, because see, whether something is a distortion, whether something is a exaggeration, we can only say if we can objectively test it and see, is this exaggeration? Which is to say, 400 years ago, if somebody would have described that, hey, you know what, 200, 300 people get into this a small tube, and in 17 hours, they are in India from New York. People would have thought this as exaggeration. Well, in 400 years ago, it was an exaggeration as far as the human experience was concerned. But now it's a reality. Now, one must understand that that could have been reality in the past, like a Pushpak Viman discussion. My point is, yes, there can be those descriptions. In that context, Professor Iyengar is saying that he still believes, although there may be some embellishments, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, he does believe that the descriptions of the sky, floods, earthquakes may not have been distorted intentionally. And I agree with him. Okay, because people will tend to distort something that they may understand, or they can exaggerate. Some of the astronomy observations, if they don't understand, they will not able to do anything. They may just keep it as is. Frankly, what happens, Adityaji, and this is the one that Professor R N Iyengar is pointing out, actually bringing it up. I mean, I'm not agreeing with him, but he's bringing up what he's saying about that my award-winning paper that another professor posted on the Bharatiya Vidvat Parishad. It's a Google discussion group. He is saying he does not agree. So there are two verses that I use in that paper. One is the Arundhati Vasishta observation. And the second one is Brahma Rashi as the pole star during the Valmiki Ramayana times, during the Ramayana times. So the Arundhati verse I already told you. The second verse is Brahma Rashir Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshaya Archishmantah Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshanam. That is what he is objecting to. He is saying, what is the Anvaya of this? I mean, how did someone draw the inference that the pole star referred to is the Brahma Rashi and therefore Abhijit? And of course, he's objecting to my translation. Guess what? I did not translate that verse. I took the translation, ready-made translation from Gita Press. I took the ready-made translation from online valmikiramaya.net. People can go and read that translation. And I also have additional 10, 15 translations. Like I submitted that to that group, like 6, 7 different commentaries and saying, guys, tell me, everyone is interpreting it different. So if somebody interprets in the way, and there are 2, 3 people who have interpreted in the way which I have accepted, what is the problem? And if Professor R N Iyengar does not agree with it, that's perfectly fine. That's his prerogative. He can take the translation that he's comfortable with, use that translation to show, according to him, when did the Ramayana happen? That he cannot show, that he has not shown, but he's objecting to something. And now, Adityaji, in Nyaya Darshana speak, do you know what is that called? That is called Vitanda. Why? Because Nyaya Darshana is very clear. Swaprati Paksha Sthapana Hino Vitanda. You are objecting to someone else's interpretation. You're objecting to someone else's translation. You're objecting to someone else, how he or she used that evidence to determine something, such as the dating of Ramayana. You are objecting to that translation, but you are not showing with the alternate translation that you are comfortable with what particular date of the Ramayana that it leads you to. So you don't have your own position. So pratipaksha sthapana hino. You are not establishing your own paksha. In that purva paksha, by the way, that word. But you are objecting to somebody else just for the heck of it. That is called vitanda. And immediately vitanda is a qualification enough to be considered as defeated. It is to be considered as someone to be removed from the debate assembly. Okay. Our unfortunate thing is not only that our people don't understand how to do vada and vivada, but we don't have experts in the vada who can be invited as a juries, okay, to watch this discussion going on. So that's another problem. Okay, next. Professor Iyengar insists that a fair degree of internal consistency between celestial descriptions is a prerequisite to be treated them as real observations worthy of being taken as historical facts. What he's saying is, just like suppose we are solving a jigsaw puzzle. The jigsaw puzzle, all the pieces may not meet. Somebody might have made a mistake, like because of the errors in translation, transposition, transliteration. Some of the pieces may not fit, jigsaw puzzle, they should fit. But I'm saying in the Mahabharata evidence, Ramayana evidence, Rigveda evidence, Bhagavata evidence, like the genealogy may not always fit. That's understandable. But he says there should be still fair degree of internal consistency, just like our regression, mathematical regression. If we do it, the R-square value should be very high. The R-square adjusted should be very high. Okay, and the p-value should be significant, less than 0.05, less than 0.10 in statistics speak. Something like this is saying in a simple language that he insists that a fair degree of internal consistency must be there between celestial descriptions, and it is a prerequisite for them to be treated as real observations worthy of being taken as historical facts. I completely agree with him. Okay, nothing to disagree. And I'm so glad that he's mentioning these assumptions. And it's very important because many Mahabharata researchers do not mention them because they come to backfire what they are claiming. I'm going to show you that what here Professor R N Iyengar is claiming is very good, especially, for example, if you take like bullet number 3, like believes that descriptions would not be distorted, that the fair degree of internal consistency is important, and even the few I'm going to read. I'm also telling you right now, they are going to all come to backfire 1478 BCE. Now, that is the real fun of this. Okay, let's move on. The next one is, he says, the test for consistency for celestial observation. By celestial observation, you can simply understand as astronomy observation. But for celestial observation is the ability to arrive at one or more possible dates by back calculations. Absolutely. This is very critical point. Now, for some of you, it may be thinking, my God, where is the exciting stuff? This is boring. Guys, I'll tell you, this is exciting stuff. The test for consistency for astronomy observation, frankly, any observations, any theory, any evidence, is the ability to arrive at one or more possible dates by back calculation. In this case, because we are discussing dating, therefore he's saying date. It can be anything else if that is the focus. Which is, what is he saying? That they should able to come together. You just don't explain them, but they should lead to a specific time period, a specific year, or a specific time period. I cannot agree more with it. I 110% agree with this statement. Okay, so the astronomy evidence, your theory, one's theory, not only should able to explain that astronomy evidence, like just from a conceptual perspective, we should able to show in an objective fashion that whatever I am claiming, something is going ahead of someone, the Brahma Rashi as the pole star, Brahma Rashi is equal to Abhijit, nothing but Abhijit is same as the star Vega. Not only I can see it, but you should able to see it. Okay, you should also be able to convince that Brahma Rashi is same as Abhijit as a Vega based on the ancient references. Okay, now, of course, this assumes certain knowledge on your part. You have to have a scientific acumen. You have to have a logical reasoning. You have to have some English skills. You have to have some Sanskrit skills, not a lot. You must have a knowledge of astronomy. That is given. Okay, but after that, we all should able to test it. It's like saying eating a donut. Unless someone's palate is truly distorted because of some disease, all of us should able to test the donut as sweet. Okay, it is as simple as that. So for consistency, celestial observations is their ability to arrive at one or more possible dates by back calculation. It's very important. And as we go through this Purva Paksha series, I will tell you how many people will claim that they have explained the astronomy observation, but guess what? It does not lead to any specific year, or it does not lead to any specific period. The whatever observation they are claiming, it can be true anywhere. It can be true today. It can be true 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. That observation by itself is never going to be useful for us to narrow down the date. Okay, so I completely agree with Professor R N Iyengar here. Then he says, the problem with past efforts in their inability to reconcile multiple observations for the same planet, example, Saturn afflicting Rohini, Saturn settled near Vishaka while shining brightly for a year. You may not go into the details right now, but the point he's saying is the problem with past efforts. Professor Iyengar is saying the problem with the Mahabharata researchers who have claimed a specific year before him, so let's say before 2003, when he published this paper, is that, according to him, is their inability to reconcile multiple observations for the same planets. I am so glad that Professor R N Iyengar is accepting, admitting, showing awareness that in the Mahabharata text, we have seen that in a couple of episodes before, the astronomy evidence is very rich. If just focusing on the planets, 35 plus specific astronomy observations related to planets. And for a given planet, that planet is described with respect to multiple nakshatras doing multiple different things. We should able to reconcile those. That is the trick, guys. It's like solving the jigsaw puzzle. If all the pieces of different states of United States for the United States map jigsaw puzzle, if they don't fit, most of them even they don't fit, then we have not solved that puzzle. Okay, so he's saying the multiple observations we must able to reconcile. I completely agree with him. I have done that. I assert that I have done that, I will show that he failed disastrously to show reconciliation of any of the planets. Now take this right now as a very tall claim from me, okay? That I'm saying someone has failed, okay? We are going to go through detail verse by verse and show the specific astronomy screenshots for 1478, for 5561 BC, and show you what the reality is. Aditya ji, anything you want to add? And also tell me, that's why I said we need to go into multiple parts. So do tell me how many more minutes we can go, and if you want to add anything.
No, actually, you built out very good points, and I think I don't have anything to add, but I just want to add a small comment on the last point that you mentioned.
Okay, I'll get it. Yeah, on the backs. Yeah,
and which is especially related to the stars, because this is something which is used exclusively, like Bhagwan Ram's and Sita's marriage was done in Phalguni Nakshatra, which is considered very auspicious for marriage.
Yeah.
And but if somebody misinterprets it and makes a slight change over there,
Yes,
it completely changes the month and the year of the marriage of Bhagwan Ram. So that nakshatra knowledge is very much required, and I'm learning from you and other scholars on this, because
yes.
it is utmost required. Otherwise, you will make difficulty like the Pushya and Shravana and other nakshatra. You'll make a mistake.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Even for me, it's a topic where I need to study myself first,
Yes.
and then clarify whether I was right or wrong. There are a lot of
Correct.
scholars available.
Yes.
And then we make our own determination before we comment on anyone else.
Absolutely. You put it very well. See, initially, before even we start telling people, I mean, sharing whatever we have found with others, I mean, our Indian Nyaya tradition has these words, Swarthanuman and then Pararthanuman. First, we have to truly understand what we are going to claim. And then, so Swarthanuman can be, the process of Swarthanuman is slightly different, because sometimes, internally you just say, hey, I intuitively feel this way. And I'm saying, frankly, that may be sufficient for Swarthanuman, right? As an example, I'll tell you, Aditya ji. So somebody says, you know what, Nilesh ji, I have read your book. I have listened to your videos. They are very impressive. They are very scientific. They are very logical. But still, based on my emotion and my shraddha and what my guru told me or something, I still believe that Mahabharat war happened in 2200 BC, whatever the date they say. What are your thoughts? I said, no, I said, congratulations that you have reached something and it is making you happy. You are not necessarily demanding that gets put into a textbook or like this California controversy, that's fine. I mean, it may be wrong. I mean, I can tell you it is wrong, but my goal is not to put you down or anything. If it's for your own purposes and for whatever reason, whatever damn reason it makes you happy, I have no reason to change anything, as long as whatever you believe is not leading to violence or inconvenience or any kind of other bad element, bad aspects in the societal living. I'm fine with it. But then Pararthanuman is a very different game. And that is when we need the scientific acumen, we need logical reasoning, we need Vyapti Jnana, we need a background knowledge.
And traditions also.
Tradition, because now you have to explain it to someone. So, well, tradition, do you know when tradition will come into picture? See, tradition, we need it because that is a part of the Vyapti Jnana, that is part of the background knowledge, right? Many times tradition tends to save things for us. And they may not necessarily save the evidence in every case, right, but they will save they will save for us the final line. If I can take a digression, I'll quickly tell you something. As a tradition, what can happen? When I was doing research on the dating of Ramayana, what happened is this. There are 600 plus astronomy references in the Ramayana, and I was using them to solve this jigsaw puzzle of the dating of Ramayana. So the particular aspect that I was trying to assign the dates, so I had come from the year of the Mahabharat war backwards, all the way to the birth year of Rama. And from there, Rama Janma, and then Ram goes to, with Vishwamitra, then he gets married to Sita, comes back to Ayodhya, 1 year goes by. And those were the instances that I was doing. Then he goes to Vanvas. Here is what is interesting. I'm saying how the tradition sometime might help you. I'm not saying I took help of the tradition, but it gave me a soft secondary corroboration for what I had found based on astronomy references. So from the time, now exactly when Rama left, at least from a Tithi perspective, we know, because he was going to be coronated as a Yuvraj on his birthday, right? The Chaitra Shukla Navami. And that day, instead of being coronated, he was sent to Vanvas. Then Ram, Lakshman, Sita came to Chitrakoot. And then after some time, Bharata followed, and Bharata came to Chitrakoot. And how to decide exactly how much time went by in between? There are no specific descriptions in Valmiki Ramayana. So I was going by the astronomy evidence that I was finding when Bharat and Rama met at Chitrakoot. Based on that evidence, and based on when Rama left for Vanvas, it was coming out a time of approximately 3 months. I mean, everyone can see that into my book, The Historic Ram, or 12,209 BC. What is interesting, Aditya is this. I had like 6 to 10 different translations of Valmiki Ramayana in front of me, and I'm going through all of them, making sure my translation is acceptable, correct, and whatnot, that, if there is a consistency. And the Gita Press Valmiki Ramayana, I mean, it's here, the Gita Press English Valmiki Ramayana, if you can say it, So that book, in a side note, it's not in the Valmiki Ramayana shloka, and therefore it doesn't have to be in the Valmiki Ramayana translation because it's not mentioned there. But the translator, whoever that Panditji is, who is translating for Gita Press, he has made his own note there. And that note said that when Bharat came to meet Ram, Lakshman, and Sita at Chitrakoot, a time of about 3 months had passed. Okay, now I don't know on what basis this translator was writing it. And I had not read this, by the way, before. But my dates, the duration based on astronomy evidence, from the time Rama left to the time Bharat and Rama met at Chitrakoot, was coming out indeed about a 3 months time period. Okay, the gap of 3 months. So that was on astronomy basis, and that Panditji, whoever has translated, has not done any astronomy analysis. But he is writing a note there as if like there was a time of 3 months that had gone by. I don't know the answer to that question, where he found the information, but that is a traditional information I would like to consider. And it is my speculation that maybe either him or whoever he heard it from, like his father, his grandfather, whatnot, who might have said this to him in a traditional sequence, might have had access to some additional information about these Valmiki Ramayana narrations or Ramayana narrations, and that information might have existed somewhere. But now this was a wonderful validation, and it's a very weak validation because we have to take whatever he wrote on the leap of Shraddha, but still it's a very interesting, fascinating validation, if weak validation, of I came up with a gap of 3 months based on astronomy evidence, and somebody here is saying that actually it appears like there was a gap of 3 months. Now that knowledge I consider traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge may not always come out correct, but it is always useful. It is always directionally useful, and especially important when we don't have any other evidence, and when we are stuck. Actually, what will we do? Suppose if the astronomy evidence that all we are discussing was not there in the Mahabharat, was not there in the Ramayana, then we would have used whatever traditional information is there. For example, somebody said Mahabharat happened 5,000 years ago. We would have said, okay, maybe so, 5,000 years ago. And Ramayana, million years ago, we would have said, okay, hey, I don't know how that would be possible, but yeah, I mean, unless I have evidence that is alternate and that is better than what the tradition is saying, I have no reason to open my mouth. I mean, I can question it on some other grounds, but still, unless I have evidence, I cannot do much. Okay, so I mean, we have to go additional 2 pages before even we discuss that. So right now we are at like a 50 minutes or so, Aditya ji. So if we need to stop, we can stop here today. And the next time we will get into part 2 of critiquing the 1478 BCE claim of Professor R N Iyengar.
Yes, we can do part 2 on this one. And
Okay, so is it okay to stop today then?
yes, yes, it's good.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
And
Okay.
one more point I would like to add there. Like sometimes because when we read Shastra for the first time, and I would like to encourage everybody to read it in Sanskrit and your local mother tongue, the Tamil,
Hmm.
Gujarati. And if you don't know those languages, if you're in USA, but still try to read the original text. Maybe you have to learn the language because
Hmm.
the English translations, many of the English translations are not correct.
Yes.
And most of them include a Abrahamic concepts into the Vedic text with two different conclusions totally. The words play a very important role, and
Very
uh,
much.
and do that and try to see if you want to learn seriously learn the Vedic or the Indian version. You have to quote the Indian authors and the Vedic authors. You know,
Yeah. One more thing I will add that they can also use is see, there is online, there are many dictionaries, but online spoken Sanskrit dictionary, for
correct,
example,
correct,
spoken Sanskrit, right? Dot D something. So what happens when they are looking at somebody's translation, even in English translation, sometime word to word translation, they can look at it, and when intuitively it doesn't make sense, I mean, at least that happens to me and my son who is studying Bhagavad Gita right now besides doing other thing, and he picked one particular copy and he said, is this good? I said, it doesn't matter whether it is good or not, start studying with that. Anytime intuitively you feel this translation doesn't look right, go to some other alternate translations, plus look through the dictionary,
right,
because every single Sanskrit word can have multiple meanings,
right,
and we have to find the right meaning in the right context. So
right.
that's just an additional thing I wanted to add to what you already said.
So you'll suddenly find a eureka moment,
Yes.
like you found something new. Like for me also is very fascinating. I was discussing Nilesh ji when Bhagwan Ram on my new book, which is coming out shortly. And so when he crosses the Ganga and the Saryu and the Ganga, they meet and he crosses south. It's a
Huh.
eureka moment for me. But don't go to the social media and post it. Now you digest it first,
Correct.
and
So
it will take.
Arthanuman, be convinced yourself
Be
first.
convinced yourself. Now you go to and Nilesh ji also showed me that how he goes to the Google Earth, and I also started going there because the descriptions are very accurate. There is a mountain he saw in which he saw the deers. Now, if you look at the Google Earth, you will not see a very mountain close by until Rajgir,
Correct.
which is in Bihar,
Yeah,
and
and you have to do three dimension and
three
just check
dimension.
every land surface.
Right. Because the mountains, rivers can change path, but mountains cannot.
Correct.
And that's where
Good point. Great point, by the way.
you
Yeah.
know and so when people say the continents are colliding and Himalaya is rising, now all these theories you can check for. There is scientific data available, so all the continents are connected at the bottom. There's nothing floating. You
Yeah.
can collide only when there is floating.
Hmm.
And so then you have to check on Sagar Maharaj digging of the earth. And then, so if somebody is digging the earth with 60,000 people, it's a big army of digging. And that's how you start coming to the truth.
Yeah.
And so eureka moment, avoid totally. Social media is not going to give you an answer. Quora, Wikipedia, on especially on our culture. And when you put that eureka moment out, actually you're happy with that because you'll get popularity. There will be 20 likes, 15 comments, and that's, people will say how dharmic you are. Don't go for that. Don't go for that, because this is a very good shloka. He said swartha, jivan sarthak kari kar par upkar.
Hmm.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. So first you sarthak, you make your own research sarthak before you get into eureka moment.
Correct.
And-
Don't
and-
don't be in a hurry to go for popularity, or the word used in a commercial sense, they call it notoriety.
yes,
First have the see, you want to become popular. Even if you want to become popular, first thing, you shouldn't be going after it. But suppose somebody wants to become popular, I understand. Everyone
yes,
kind of feels I'm important, or people are at least know about me. But to go for notoriety, or aka also known as popularity, before you, it's better that you have a substance,
correct.
because you don't want to be popular for wrong reasons.
Correct, correct, correct. So do that, and I think you'll get a very good experience. And you mentioned very good points. The notes on the Sanskrit. And there are many guides available, which you can see. Sanskrit English Shabdakosh is available.
Mm.
So you can use that also. So thank you all for joining. And Nilesh, if you have any last point, please add if you have.
Yeah, no, well, just to say, we did not even scratch the surface in terms of doing the Purva Paksha of the Professor R N Iyengar's claim of 1478 BC. It's a very exciting to do it, because, even from wrong claims, we learn a lot.
Correct.
At least we know what not to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not, I'm saying in a sarcastic fashion. Okay, in a very genuine fashion, we learn. Actually, when I was doing my research, the very fact all of these researchers, all of these researchers had made almost every possible mistake that can be done, was very useful to me, because I didn't have to make that same mistake again.
Yes.
So we will continue with this discussion with our next episode.
Yes. Thank you all for watching and staying so long live in the live chat. And that too, today was a little late. And
Yes.
also in the next session, we'll cover the part 2. Keep watching it.
Thank you.
Namaskar.